I'm Alex Michelson, and welcome to The Issue Is. This week, a deep dive into the systemic racial issues at the forefront of the national debate. With us via Skype is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Karen Bass, is a Democratic representative from Los Angeles. She joins us from Los Angeles, home of Fox 11 Los Angeles. Congresswoman, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
The news at the end of this week is the arrest and the charging with third-degree murder of the officer at the center of that case. Prosecutors vowing that the other officers will be likely charged in the coming days. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, just shock and despair. I mean, how many times do we have to see black people killed on video and for there not to be an arrest immediately? So they arrested him for third-degree murder. That is not sufficient. I do think that there needs to be an investigation as to the relationship between the officer and Mr. Floyd. We need to find out whether or not they knew each other, because there's a lot of articles talking about that they did. How could you possibly not arrest immediately the people that helped facilitate the murder that we all watched? Every single one of those officers should be arrested and charged just like any other crime.
So if third-degree murder isn't enough, what do you want to see?
Well, what I'm saying is that we need to find out whether or not the officer and Mr. Floyd knew each other. Maybe it needs to be first-degree murder. I don't know. But the thing about it is that there should have been an arrest immediately. I tell you, it's an absolute heartbreak to see people destroying the community. I think that the protest, and I will note that the protesters were a rainbow. It was not just African Americans protesting. Every ethnic group, every racial group is there participating. I think they should continue to do that, but absolutely without the violence.
Help explain the systemic issues at play here, and maybe help for, say, our white audience that is watching this that may not understand life as an African-American person, put some perspective on why there is so much anger on this.
Well, you know, one of the things that I have said, and I don't care how extreme it sounds, but I absolutely believe that that officer had had his knee on the neck of an animal, on a dog, and killed the animal over 8 minutes. There would be absolute outrage about animal cruelty. The problem is that when it is an African American, the immediate question is, what did he do? He had to have done something.
What would you like to see in terms of systemic changes to prevent something like this from happening again?
Well, I think the way we look at policing in this country overall fundamentally needs to change. And you know, when people are being honest, they will tell you that there are two different standards, two different worlds. In a white community, in a middle-class community, the police are there to protect and serve. That is not the mentality that we find in inner city areas. It's viewed as a war zone. I've had many police officers tell me that rookie cops love to go to the inner city so they can kick butt. The entire view and fundamental perception of the community is different in terms of policing. And we also need to look at some of the standards. For example, a police officer, if they shoot someone, if they kill someone, and if they say that they thought their life was in danger, when have you ever seen them convicted? So since black people are so scary, well, if there's violence committed toward a black person by a police officer, they were in fear of their life, so that's why they had to kill. The response is always exactly the same. And so that should tell you then that the laws that allow me saying that I'm in fear of my life, then something needs to be changed there. Police unions are very powerful around the country, and they have made sure that they have passed laws that essentially never permit their conviction or even their arrest, and that's something that needs to change.
This week you tweeted about the fact that this incident reminded you of the 1992 LA riots. As somebody who lived through that traumatic experience here in California, what was the most important lesson you learned from that experience that maybe can be applied now?
Well, what happened in Los Angeles is we needed to fundamentally change our police department. We had a horrible police chief at the time who I remember years before when there were a number of African Americans that were dying because they were being choked to death in a chokehold. And our police chief at the time said that he thought that the neck veins of black people were different than quote unquote normal people. After 1992, we fundamentally changed things in Los Angeles. Now, we still have plenty of problems, but at least we don't have a police chief like that. And so change needs to obviously happen in Minnesota. Apparently there, 95% of the police officers don't live anywhere near the community. And I bet you if you did an honest survey, if they answered honestly, they would tell you the contempt that they have for the people that they are supposed to be protecting and serving. How on earth can you arrest a CNN reporter that has his badge in full display? You have a black CNN reporter and a white CNN reporter. The white CNN reporter is told, okay, you're fine. The black CNN reporter is arrested while he's reporting.
That was an outrageous moment. Something else that a lot of people view as outrageous is a tweet by the President of the United States saying that looters will be shot. He had an opportunity to talk about this incident more at a press conference. He decided not to talk anything about it. He talked about that he wanted to defund the World Health Organization. What do you make of President Trump's response to all of this?
Well, I think the president has been consistent. He's been consistent from his first day of announcing his campaign. He has attacked folks of color consistently. He has said what he believes about African Americans. And frankly, I'm very glad he had nothing to say at his press conference, because there would have been nothing that came out of his mouth that would have been constructive. So it's best that he left it alone. His whole idea of breaking relations with the World Health Organization is simply to deflect from the fact that today we have over 100,000 dead Americans in 3 months, and he is responsible for that because he has lacked the leadership. For him to say that if you're looting, you're shooting, that came out of the mouth of the President of the United States. This is how low the presidency has been reduced under his time in office. And all I hold on to is the fact that we have about 158 days left to deal with his administration.
Let's talk for a moment about his response to the coronavirus and to the Democratic response to the coronavirus. The Democrats in Congress passed legislation recently, a $3 trillion piece of legislation. Republicans say it's a non-starter. What happens if the Republicans just say, no, we're not spending any more money? Because it seems like we're at a deadlock right now.
They won't say that. In my opinion, them saying it was dead on arrival is the type of posturing that is typical within Congress. They know good and well. I mean, we have over 40 million Americans without jobs now. Do I think that for a minute they're going to allow our complete economy to collapse? And this is a sad thing to say, but they want to get reelected. And there is no way they're going to sit back and say there's no more money. Where I believe it's going to come down is that we will pass a bill. I believe that we will pass a bill before the end of June, and I believe that bill will have significant amounts of money for states and local. We also called for there to be an intervention in areas where there is a disproportionate death rate. Out of those 100,000 people that are dead today, between 20 and 40% of them are African American. If you add in Latinos, it might even be the majority. What I believe the president is doing now is one of two things. Either he has no strategy at all, or the strategy he has is herd immunity. And what that means is, let's just let it all hang out. Let's just expose everybody to the disease. We recognize that people are going to die, but that's what happens. So he either has no strategy at all, or he's decided, now that we see who's dying, you know, we know it's not going to be 1 million people. We just need to move forward, because the most important thing is my reelection. And the key to my reelection is for the economy to be back in place. Extremely short-sighted thinking, because if you don't get the health situation under control, we're going to open up the economy only to shut it down again.
All right, Congresswoman, we could talk all day, but I have to leave it there. You know, we like to play music on this show. So this week, 21 Pilots on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon have a song called Level of Concern from home, all about this moment. Take a listen. Sounding good, and they're singing about their quarantine experience there. Everybody getting creative these days. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Always great to see you.